getting to see Jeff Ross on Broadway. My wife and I got to see Jeff Ross's latest show. And I was about to say it was a night out on the town, but it was actually an afternoon out, which was one of my favorite parts of going, which was that it was a 3 p.m. show. Because I'm an old head and I like whatever activity it is that I do, I like to be done with it and back at home by like 6, 7 p.m. So Jeff Ross clearly knows his audience. And there also were later shows, but I definitely appreciate the 3 p.m. slot. It's a limited series, 8-week only show that's on Broadway. Jeff Ross is a legendary comedian. He is the roast master general. You know, he's known for all the Comedy Central roasts and just roasting in general. His stand-up comedy specials. I think I broke down on here the one that he did with Dave Attell called Bumping Mics, which is great. So when I saw this opportunity, I definitely had to jump on it. Here is a bit about the show. Legendary comic Jeff Ross returns home for his long-awaited Broadway debut in Take a Banana for the Ride, a hilarious, heartfelt one-man show about laughing through the pain, the importance of having thick skin, and the vengeful pleasures of a Jewish comic having a German dog. This 90-minute performance is the result of a 30-year journey in comedy, a cathartic mix of dangerous jokes, touching family stories, and songs that stay with you long after the curtain falls. No two shows are exactly alike, but each reveals the Roastmaster General at his most unguarded, raw, reflective, and ridiculously funny. It'll be your most emotional night at the theater since Mufasa died in The Lion King. And that's a great little synopsis because that's what the show was. The set decoration was great. He had like a bunch of picture frames, like really large picture frames, different sizes, just hanging up behind him with all the lights off in the back. So it looked like there was like a black velvet curtain or wall that all these frames were hung up on, but they were just suspended in the air. And they were actual screens, and throughout the show, he's speaking about his childhood and his dad and his mom and his sister and his other family members, his dogs, his grandfather, so on and so forth. And as he's telling anecdotes of all different types of stories from his life, he flashes photos on the screen, which is really cool. You get a much deeper insight into him as a person, as, you know, the man and comic that he became. And if you know me, I love the how the sausage was made type of stories. So that was definitely a real treat. It did get emotionally heavy at times. He spoke about his battle with cancer, colon cancer, his very close friends in comedy passing away, like Norm Macdonald, and told stories about him. Bob Saget told stories about him. Gilbert Gottfried told stories about him as well. Every once in a while, he'll break out into hilarious songs, like made up songs, which is pretty cool. He also had a couple musicians with him there on stage. One was a pianist, one was a guitarist. One of my favorite anecdotes actually from the show was related to Judy Blume, which I've broken down either her masterclass, I forget what it was, or her documentary. I think it was the documentary I broke down here in the podcast. And I just always found her like so cool. Like I like want to be Judy Blume's friend, you know? And there was a dope anecdote that Jeff shared in, you know, speaking about his family, where his grandmother started a catering hall in Jersey. And I had known that his family was in the catering business and had a catering business just from like his appearances on Rogan and, you know, different shows. But what was dope about it is how he spoke about how, you know, it was a rare thing for a woman to own a business, let alone a successful one back then. And like what a badass his grandmother was for being able to start that, and how the whole family got involved in it. And then eventually his father took it over and it was like the family business. He worked there, his sister worked there, you know, the different family members worked there. And it was like a known catering hall that did a bunch of events in Jersey, like bar mitzvahs and weddings. And Judy Blume references it in one of her novels, which I think it was, because when he said it, it sounded familiar. And I think it was the "Hey God, it's me, Margaret." But there's a line in there that says something to the effect of that every girl's dream in Jersey is to have her Sweet 16 at such and such catering, which I forget the name. But it was that catering hall, his family's catering hall, that she referenced. Like, that's how known it was within the community. And I thought that was like a dope time for Judy Blume. And for as heavy as it was at times, you know, he's a comics comic, so he made light of it, and it was extremely funny as well. It's a very, very balanced show, but very self-reflective. And it was sad to hear his mom's passing when he was like still a teenager, and his father raising them, and his mother's father, his grandfather, moving in with them to help raise them, and then his father dying, and him pretty much just living with his grandfather slash best friend slash roommate until he eventually passes away, but like many years later. That was like a cool relationship that he broke down there. A ring, actually, this metal ring that Jeff always wears, was his grandfather's. And his grandfather got that when working on a Navy ship, if I remember correctly. It was like a Nazi Navy ship that they had to break down when it came like on shore here in the US, I think. Or I might be mixing up the details a bit, but he was part of a group of folks that for whatever reason had to break down the ship, and one thing he did was take like a metal bolt from the ship and then pretty much like flattened it out and shaped it into a ring, which he always wore. It's kind of like a fuck you to the Nazis type of thing. And then he eventually passed that on to Jeff, and to Jeff it's a way to remember his grandfather, obviously, but also to always be resilient. And it was a great show, man. We had a really good time. My only regret, because towards the end he did this thing where he walked through the crowd and he literally told anybody who wants to get roasted. He started like roasting people, and then he was like, anybody who wants to get roasted, just stand up, and then when I pass by, I'll roast you. I was like at the edge of my seat. I was like, I gotta get up, but I fucking didn't. Like an asshole, like a bitch. So I definitely regret that. And afterwards, I was just thinking, you know, all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and you know how cool would it have been to get roasted by the roast master himself. It was literally right there. All I had to do was stand up from my seat. I had to do nothing else but stand up, and I didn't fucking do it. So let that be a lesson, kids. And then after the fact, I was reminded of this insight that I got from the book Tools by Phil Stutz that I actually implemented in real life once when I was in a similar situation, when I went to see Ari Shaffir at New York Comedy, or at the Stand, I think it was, years ago. And I was in the middle of reading that book at the time when we went to go see him, and it was just like a regular, you know, 15-minute, 20-minute spot. But one of the tools in the book is to, whenever you're like riddled with doubt or anything like that, or hesitant about something, picture yourself in your deathbed and ask yourself what you wish you would have done in that moment if you had a second chance. So that was in my head at that time, and normally I would have bitched out and just stayed seated, but that helped me summon up the, I don't know, courage, I guess, to like get up. And then after Ari performed, he was like sitting by the bar, then I just like went over to him and introduced myself, said what's up, and it was extremely awkward, but you know, I got to give him a pound and say that I enjoy his comedy. I'm a fan, and that's pretty much it. But I did it, is the point. But then this time around, I guess it's been a while since I read the book, but I didn't have that tool floating around in my mind, and wish I did. But regardless, it was a dope experience that my wife and I both enjoyed. And I actually scored the tickets on the Broadway lottery site, which, if anybody's not familiar, check out the website lottery.broadwaydirect.com, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. You guys can figure it out. But I actually did record like a how-to video, like how to get these tickets, and it's either on my website or on YouTube somewhere. If I find it, I will link to it, but if I don't, I'll at least link to the website. Folks to check out, and essentially they put random shows on there on a daily basis, and you have a chance to just fill out your name, your email address, and you enter this lottery. And if you're picked, you get an email saying, hey, you won the tickets. Do you want to purchase them? And it's like steeply discounted tickets that are for the show the next day, usually. But you can get, two, like in our case, it was two, we were in the second row, orchestra, for, I forget how much it was, but like under $100 for both. When normally those tickets are, a couple hundred or 100 plus at least each. So definitely check that out. And of course, if you get the chance to go see the show any which way, Jeff Ross's Take a Banana for the Ride on Broadway. I highly recommend it.